All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Danielle Bonner. I am the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing Operations here at InScribe. Today, you've come to join us as we talk about digital communities and how they provide an online space for learners to connect with peers, share ideas, ask questions, and seek advice. The, official title of our session today is I Belong Here, Using Digital Communities to Connect Students Anytime and Anywhere. Jeannie, can you slide on over to the next slide for me?
I sure can.
Awesome. So I am joined by my colleague, Jeannie Brevoort, who is our Customer Success Associate here at InScribe. She does many more things than that, but she is going to walk us through this journey today. And in addition to that, I wanted to make sure that you are all familiar with Fred Scott, our Director of Sales. After today's conversation, you will likely receive emails and other outreach from Fred directly. Next slide, please. So we want to make sure that this is a two-way conversation. We want to answer all of your questions as they pop into your head today. So please feel free to interact with us in the chat feature. You are welcome to put questions in the Q&A. However, those go directly to just the panelists, and we really feel it is best if everyone can see the questions that are being asked, because oftentimes people have the same questions. So if you wouldn't mind putting your questions in the chat, but in addition to that, if you just take a moment, introduce yourself. We'd love to know what brought you here today, and we can position our messaging based on why you're here. Next slide, please. Oh, wonderful. So we are going to try something new today. And after our conversation in the Zoom format, we would like to invite you all to an in-space community where you can talk to us one-on-one and share any additional questions that you may have about our product or about implementation, or just ask any types of questions that you may have. It's really a way for us to break this barrier in the Zoom webinar room and meet you face to face. So we invite you to stay for that as well. Next slide. All right, Jeannie, so why are we here today? Why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Okay, I'm going to kick this off. Danielle, in the meantime, are you able to check the chat? It seems like somebody messaged me and they said chat was disabled for them. So I just want to make sure that connects as I get rolling.
Wonderful. I will figure that out as we go along here. Thank you.
Perfect. That was a beautiful handoff, Danielle. Thank you so much. I want to thank you, everyone who came to join us today. So why are we here? I really want to share with you about how institutions are using InScribe digital communities to connect students to the institution, to their peers, and to information. We do know, and we have some studies along the lines of just how institutions that are using these digital spaces have proven to increase students' sense of belonging. And we all know that when students feel like they belong, that they are able to persist. So we're just going to talk a little bit about those digital spaces. Again, as Danielle said, I really want this time to be useful for you. So once we get that chat enabled, please put your questions in the chat. I would love to answer those live. Introduce yourself. I would love to know where you're from. So I would encourage you to do that.
It should be working now, Jeannie. Sorry to interrupt you, but it should be working. Hi, Frank. Thank you for joining us from Michigan. We will continue the chat or the conversation in the chat now.
Perfect. Thank you. So please, yes, take your time and introduce yourself. I would love to know where you're joining us from and what questions you have about belonging and digital communities and how we do it InScribe. So a little bit about me. My name is Jeannie Brevoort. I have worked at InScribe for almost 3 years. I work on the customer success side. So I really work alongside many institutions implementing these digital communities. So that's kind of what I get to do. So I'm excited that I can introduce them to you here. A little bit more about me is that I was a first-generation college student way back in the day. And then I also worked my way through college. So I identify with that non-traditional student experience. So when I found InScribe, I really connected to the story and the purpose behind InScribe, which is really to build the belonging and connect students to not just their institution, not just information, but to peers, because when students are working, when students are parents, it's just a little bit trickier to connect. So I'm just really excited to tell you a little bit more about that. So early on, InScribe really focused on students that were learning online. And then, as we all know, in 2020, everyone, faculty, students, K through 12, everyone kind of moved into an online space and became non-traditional learners. And then what we have, experienced, and what I'm sure you're experiencing, is that even when students return to campus, even though we're moving back into, this new normal, what we have realized is that students are connecting in different ways. The way they connect, the way they want to connect and show up is a little different than it was pre-pandemic. And we also know that our student population is changing. So more students are parenting, more students are working while going to school. Even, students that we would consider traditional students are given the opportunity to take 1 or 2 classes online. So we're really seeing this diverse, population of students change. So that now, how do we support, this diverse population of students in a way where we can really connect students? So that's really what we're going to talk about. And then, Danielle, are there any questions so far? I've been rambling.
Yeah, no, you're fine. There aren't any questions at this point. So we have people joining us from all across the country. I'm a little bit jealous of the people in Arizona. It's probably warmer there than it is here in Denver today. And actually, we have some people internationally too. So that's pretty awesome.
Great.
Anna, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know it's very late where you are at. So are we going to go ahead and get into the slides now? Is that where we're at? Okay, perfect. Yeah. I just want to remind the audience, if you all have any questions, please feel free. Oh, 58 degrees in Phoenix. Look at me, I'm getting distracted. 58 sounds lovely compared to, what was it here yesterday, Jeannie? 30, 40?
30, 40, but I bet you in Phoenix, they are in turtlenecks.
That's well, I am originally from Phoenix, and I will tell you with confidence that I wore the furry boots when it was 58 degrees. Anyways, yeah, if we could go ahead and get into the content here. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat.
Yeah, perfect. So really what we're talking about is community, and why does community matter? We know that post-pandemic, a lot of students are reporting that they feel less connected to students, to their institution. So we really know that when a community is created, students feel like they belong more, they're more connected. And when students feel like they belong, they're able to persist, and that leads to student success. And that's really the goal that we have for students, is to keep them in their seats and to keep them learning and to help them succeed. So what do students want? As we talked about, our student population changing, students don't tend to ask questions 9 to 5. Usually, we're seeing questions come in at 10 and 11 at night. And usually when a student asks a question, they want an answer pretty quickly. So how do we support these students? How do we get students the answers quickly? Students also want a simple approach to support. They don't want to have to go to campus, to make a phone call. And the other thing that's really important to me is students really want a place to authentically connect. This is one of my favorite things about InScribe and being on the customer support team, is just really seeing the way students connect in our online spaces. As we go through a little bit of a demo, I'll show you just how easy it is for students to connect. But what's really heartwarming is just seeing, students say, hey, I'm a single parent, I'm in my 50s, I am juggling full-time work, I'm not quite sure I can do this. And having other students jump in and say, no, you can do this, we're in the same boat, and just really showing up for each other. And again, we know that when somebody else has a story similar to ours, we just feel a little bit encouraged. We don't feel as alone, and we can continue on, and we feel like we continue on together. But what does this mean for you all? What does this mean for the students? Of course, we want students to succeed and persist. We want them to continue on. We want to increase, that overall sense of belonging and satisfaction. But what are the things you want to learn? You want to learn about what your students are being challenged with, what they're struggling with. In an InScribe community, I'll show you how that's visible to you, so you can really get just what your students are going through. And then also, it's important for you all to improve the efficiency of support. We know that support is expensive. A lot of support is one-off emails, the same question over and over. One of the biggest benefits of having an InScribe community is if you have one question in a community, that everyone benefits when that answer is given. And again, I'll show you once we get to the demo, but unlike something like Facebook groups or, Slack or some of these other, Discord groups, InScribe has some technology built in where answers are not lost. You don't lose it in the scroll of information. That is probably one of my favorite things about and differences about the InScribe communities and how it really works to connect students to answers quickly, not losing that scroll of information. We want to get students' time is valuable, and we want to get students the answers as quickly as possible.
Jeannie, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because a question come into the chat, and it's actually in the same vein as what you're currently speaking about. And the question is in regards to integration. So we want to meet students right where they're at. What types of integrations does InScribe have? Yeah, I am going to get to that, and I will show you each of the things. What is super important, what I said, is, again, we want to be where students are at. So to quickly answer your question, we don't have a separate place where people have to enter in different credentials. We want to make things simple for students. So we do have a mobile app. We plug into learning management systems. We can be a part of your website. We can be a part of your portal. And as we go along, I'll show you some examples of those, because again, we want it to be easy for students to access, and we want to be where the students are currently. So thank you for that question. That's great. Is there anything else I should hit on in that vein? So we have a question about the slides in today's presentation. So we will make sure to send out a recording after today's webinar with the slides and any additional resources that we share along the way. Thanks, Jeannie. Oh. Okay, so what is a peer community? Just again, it's a virtual space. So InScribe is a digital space where students can connect. They can connect at any time of the day. You fill a community with students, and then you have a few moderators. And what we've learned over the years in running these communities at BYU Idaho, one of our partners, they did just a really great analysis of their communities. And one of the things they learned is that students answer each other's questions 80% of the time, even though they had moderators and tutors in a community to help, that students really were answering each other's questions and just being there for each other. And again, that lessens the pull on your resources. A peer community is also a safe space for students to ask questions and to overcome challenges. And I'll show you different ways that students can just decide how they show up in the community. They're able to add a profile picture or just show up with their initials. They can add their first name. They can post anonymously, anonymous peer-to-peer. A moderator can always learn who is posting something. But students really have agency over how they show up in a community. And again, the big difference in with the InScribe community is that knowledge repository. The longer your community goes, the more questions that get asked, the smarter the system grows, and we can connect students to answers quicker.
Also part of InScribe is just making sure we are connecting students to classmates and support systems. We'll go into this in the demo, but we also have subgroups where we can really make communities smaller. We can subgroup students and they can identify into student parents or join the Black student, organization, just areas where they identify, and again, just making them feel like they are heard, they are seen, having information that is pertinent to them so they can, feel connected and succeed. So how does a community help? So how does a community help students? Danielle is going to post a research study in the chat, but we did a great research program with Rio Salado College and the College Innovation Network, who ran the study. Rio Salado used a student community, and it was a peer-to-peer community to begin with, so it wasn't academic focused. And what we learned from that research study is that students in the community, reported a higher measure of sense of belonging and peer engagement. And the really interesting thing was, and it was really, incredible for us to see too, is that it didn't take long for students to feel more connected. In this case, it was 6 weeks. So again, just having that space where students can connect to each other and to resources just really grew that sense of community and quickly. And then how does this help you as an institution? We learned that places that use InScribe can increase their net promoter score. And again, one of the studies that we did, an institution reported that they had a 23% decrease in individual support request. And again, that's that lessening one-to-one emails and having a student put a question in an InScribe community and having everyone benefit from that answer. And Danielle, it looks like you're going to interrupt me, so please do.
We do have a question here in the chat, and I don't know that we have a solid answer for this, but maybe you can tell us what some of your partners are currently, building their communities around moderators. So approximately how many moderators are typically needed? Is there an estimated ratio of student users to moderators, excuse me?
It really, it depends. We have a wide variety of types of communities. So a peer-to-peer community, Rio Salado, I think that community has over 15,000 students where it's only a few moderators. And that really is, that community is set up where students help each other. There's a few moderators that just keep an eye on the community. We have some technology built into the system where if, it doesn't happen often, but if somebody were to, use language, a system flags and a moderator can be alerted so they can get to that post very quickly. Or if somebody posts something where they say they're struggling, we have a sentiment analysis built into the system to help moderate a community. So it's not all manual. We call our technology assistant Rosie, and Rosie really helps just keep that community healthy. So if somebody says, I'm struggling, I feel like I'm going to quit, notifications are sent to moderators in order to get to those posts quickly. So again, most cases, students are helping other students, but there's also technology built into the platform where that can help. Then there's academic communities where something, a little more, like an algebra class, there might be a few more tutors just because a lot of people, again, are returning to a math class, have more questions. And so the tutors really want to be on top of just correcting incorrect answers from other students. But again, even in our tutoring communities, people have set limits on 3 hours, not limits, but please be in the InScribe community at least 3 hours a week. So, moderators are really going in and kind of giving an overview and looking at like, is there anything I need to look at? Is there anything I need to address? So it's very minimal in compared to like one-to-one emails.
Thank you.
Yeah, that
That's
was
it
my
in the
very
chat.
long-winded answer.
That's it in the chat for now, but if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in.
Okay, perfect. And I am not sure who asked that question about access, but this is what I was going to get to. So again, one of the things that is super important to us is we don't want students to have to log into another system. We don't want students to have to maintain another password. So InScribe is really meant to connect where your students already are. What you're looking at right here is our mobile app. So students are able to get mobile notifications. And again, with that diverse population, people being parents, people working, students are able to add the mobile app and they're able to get notifications right on their phone and join in the community. Another way that I'm going to show you real quick is, especially for these academic spaces, InScribe is really meant to connect to your learning management system. So Canvas, D2L, Blackboard, and it's very, very simple. Just creating those integrations so students can work right in the platform. So again, not leaving it. This is an example of how we've integrated with Indiana University, and they put this community in on their website. So this is just very simple HTML, and we help make these integrations happen. So for this group, they can type their questions here, or they can browse by popular topic. So if they go in there, you can jump in to the community right from there and engage right from their website. So again, the goal is not to, have connecting with other students be a burden. We want to be where the students are. When we meet with you, we really talk about where your students currently going for help. Where can we put InScribe? In a lot of places, we're on a website and in the learning management system, maybe in, orientation classes and things like that. So what I'm going to demo today is really this standalone. So since you've seen the mobile app and the learning management system and the, website portal, this is kind of our, this is standalone. It's just easier for me to demo. So just to orient you a little bit about where we're at. So this is our InScribe logo. This would be branded for your institution. The community that we're in is Students Connect. So this is our community. We had talked about just that there's a little bit of technology built into the system. So if I start going into a community and, I'm thinking about taking, summer courses, I can search and, it pulls up some information already on summer term. And, you can kind of see, some other people have asked questions and you can connect right in and reply. What we do know from students' behavior is they don't tend to search for items. They just kind of jump in and they want to ask a question. The heart of InScribe is really built around conversation. So we make it super simple for students to start a conversation. If I want to ask a question and I want to introduce myself, how about I not put on my tabs? So if I start to introduce myself, I put that I'm from Colorado. This down here is Rosie. Again, Rosie is our technology assistant. I wrote that I was from Colorado. I was about ready to do my introduction, and immediately the system brought back some different things that have already been put into the system about Colorado. Anyone from Colorado, what I can do is I can preview this conversation. I don't want to stop a student from asking a question, but I can look and be like, oh, they're from Colorado too. I can join the conversation right there. So you can imagine if you were asking something about financial aid and you start typing something about financial aid, there's already some questions in the community about financial aid. This is going to bring it up and students are able to jump right into that conversation or get the information. If I don't want to join that conversation and I want to continue my own conversation, I can do that. Again, we don't want to stop students from asking their own question. But what I want to show you here, I had mentioned how an important part of InScribe is we really want to let students show up how they want to show up. So when a student goes to post in a community, the default is that this is going to post to all members of a community. So everyone can benefit from this question. I can also choose to post something anonymously. This is really important. We have students that are just more shy and reluctant. Sometimes, especially in academic spaces, we see people just not wanting to be embarrassed that they have a question, that maybe they should know this answer already, so they're embarrassed to put their name behind it. Students are able to post anonymously. You can see that we're very clear. Members can see the post, but only moderators can see the profile. So students can post peer-to-peer and be anonymous, but a moderator can always see who an anonymous person is. And again, it's to really, we want to limit just somebody coming in and just being mean. This is connected to a student's account. We know who you are. So, we've had really just good experiences with students showing up in the best way possible. But again, this anonymous option is just available for students who might be shy or reluctant to post. Students can also, yes.
So since you're talking about students being mean, I have to address what just kind of happened in the chat. So I had to remove somebody from our webinar today, and I apologize if anyone saw the Zoom bomber that had joined us and the negative comments that were being put in there. So I've removed that person, but we will stay positive in our chat, please. And if anything else comes up, please know that you will be removed. Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know that was a first, right? How fun is that?
That was a first. Okay, well, thank you, Danielle, for handling that. You are a wonderful moderator. One of the other things, the other way that a student could post is they could post to moderator only. And we see this more in a student in academic use case. And what this allows a student to do is I can put my question in the community, but it will only go to the moderators. We see this more around grades, where something might not be, for everyone in the community, but they want a moderator to respond. So, hey, I just want to know why I got this grade. Is there anything I can do to make it up? That post may go to moderator only. So those are options. And again, we just like students to have agency in how they show up. Along with that is students' profile. So here students can change their profile. They can add a picture. They can add a little bit about themselves, a bio, and they can add profiles if they like. I am a moderator, so I am able to see other people's email address and information. Student to student are not able to see that information. So that's the profile. Any questions?
No questions at this point, Jeannie.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Some other things we had talked about, subgroups. So just really, you have a large group, and a lot of institutions like to begin with a pretty open space. And as communities grow, we realize, okay, we might need a subgroup for, let's see, for student parents. So if I'm a student parent, you can see, explore the open channels, join any that apply to you. And this is actually just, affinity groups to connect people that have things in common. So in the student parents group, there might be, information on a parent support group. We put out a poll. What is the best time to get together with kids? This polling feature, whether it's an academic use case, is really good for, just getting feedback from students, like what area do we need to cover for the test that's coming up, but also really great engagement tool for peer-to-peer space. Just, what is your favorite type of ice cream? our goal is to get students to connect, and this poll feature can really be used as a low barrier entry into a community. So, this one is just talking about pick the best options for a get together. So we have a polling feature built in. So this is really for this group of people.
We do have some questions. I also want to say thank you to everyone that sent me direct messages. We have such a kind community. So thank you for all the kind messages that came in directly regarding the situation with the Zoom bomber there. So the question that we have, Jeannie, is how do institutions usually start with InScribe? Is there a pilot program, or what does implementation look like?
Wow, okay.
It's a big question, right?
Yeah, there are several questions. So really, when we, make contact with an institution, we really want to know your pain points. Is it math? Are your students, is math the one thing, that you really want to encourage students in? Do you want to create a math tutoring community, or is it an academic, a course that we want to focus on? Or like this one, this is more of a peer space. So is this something where you want to start with, with Rio Salado, we started with a peer space where we just got students connecting. They wanted students to really feel more connected to their institution. So we started around that. And from that community, we realized there were a lot of math questions and people were helping each other in math. And from there, they ended up creating an academic use case. They also ended up starting an alumni group for networking. So it really, starts out, you can start it out many different ways. But, really we want to know your pain points. Like, what are you struggling with most? How can we get your students connected? How can they feel heard? And again, that's what some of these channels are even about. Like, is there a place where students really need to connect, on a smaller level? What were some of the other ones? I'm so sorry.
You want to tell us a little bit about what implementation looks like?
Sure. So implementation, we are actually very, very hands-on. We love working with you. And, when we work with you, we really feel like we're partners in making sure students feel connected. So, from the start of implementation, we meet with you. One of those people would be me, and just learning about what are your pain points? What are your goals for this community? What are the analytics that we should really be looking at to make sure it's a healthy community and you're getting what you want out of the community? We have done a full launch within 2 weeks. It can be very quick, up and running. We do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. The heavy lifting is really, we help you create your marketing plan as far as, hey, your community is going to launch. We'll help write that, introduction to the community. Just because we have seen these communities launch over and over again, we want to help you communicate the purpose of the community. And how students reach the community. So we really help you with that. We realize you're busy, so we put a lot of that on ourselves. Again, the biggest piece can be just the technology piece. We love to create that SSO. We can use social logins like LinkedIn or Google, but really with institutions, we love just connecting through SSO. So we work with your technical team and get that set up. That could really be done in a day. But dependent on the institution, some, have a ticket and we get into a queue, but really launching from there. Then ongoing support, our customer success team meets with you weekly, and then you really dictate how often you want to meet. I love setting up weekly meetings, and if people show up and have questions, if faculty want to jump in and say, hey, I've noticed this, I want to learn more. We can have weekly meetings, but customers really dictate how often we meet. We hold trainings for anyone who wants to learn. So the stakeholders in the group, we have trained moderators, we have trained student interns, and even students that just tend to be conversation starters. We really just want to help people be successful. make sure, they jump in and they feel comfortable. It is every time I meet with customers, they're like, oh, it's very intuitive. Like, we understand how this works. It's very simple, but we want to make sure you feel comfortable. So,
and then to answer the third part of the question, Frank, can you launch into individual programs? The answer is yes. We offer different types of packages here at InScribe. There's an enterprise package where you would enter the community into your entire student life cycle, everything from enrollment or admissions on through alumni. So you have that overarching community that goes all across the student life cycle, or you have individual program communities or college communities. And so, as Jeannie's mentioned multiple times, we would meet with you and discuss what the best use case is for your institution, because it really does vary by institution. Okay, more questions coming in, Jeannie. So the default setting for the post is to go to the entire community.
Yes.
Is there an option for students to connect individually or work as a group project so they can create, or can they create their own community? Excuse me.
So that is something that's coming in the future. One of the things that I did want to show is, now this is a live session that's in the past, but we do have the ability for moderators to create live sessions. So our live sessions really use whatever platform you're currently using. So that's a Zoom, Teams, Google Meet. This one, Pippa created a Sunday social. How we see this being used too is, a drop-in tutoring session or group work. We do have a few communities right now that are trying out having the students create their own live sessions. And we just want to make sure a case-by-case basis, communities are able to do that. If they feel comfortable with students starting their own small group sessions, we can turn that on per community. But these live sessions are really great option for just bringing students in. One of the biggest highlights for these live sessions, some of you may have joined this live session from our own moderator support community. But once you create a live session, an email will go out to all students when a live session is scheduled. And then what has really increased engagement in live sessions is 15 minutes before a live session begins, students will get a reminder. So they'll get a nudge that says, hey, there's a live session starting in 15 minutes. Students can join from their mobile app. Students can join from an email notification. They can jump into the community and join right into a live session. And then in every conversation, you can add images, you can add videos, links, all of these different things. But a really great best practice is, once a live session has ended, we encourage you to add the recording back in and just say, hey, if you missed this live session, here's the recording and join us there. So that's the way we're handling kind of those small groups right now. There is a lot of work going on in the background on our product roadmap. We are making the system feel a little bit more synchronous. And so pretty soon you'll start to see like, oh, there's 5 people in the community that are live. And that might be a hint like, hey, this is a good time to start a live session. So
I do have to add, so our good friend Anna at InSpace is actually in on our webinar today. So she wanted to make sure that we added in there that InSpace can do some of that synchronous stuff as well.
Yes, absolutely. And then I know we're running short on time and we want to jump into InSpace to connect, but I do want to show you what is important to you and is very important to us is analytics for a community. So really, we want to we want you to be able to see, is the community healthy? Are we seeing engagement? So moderators have the ability to look at analytics. So this is just kind of like a member overview, but we can kind of see, this is a demo community, so this is not very interesting. But you can see an overview of a certain time period. top contributors. So this is where you can really learn who are your top people asking questions, answering questions. One of the big things we've learned in a lot of our communities, top contributions. What are students looking at? What are they really focusing on? And this allows us to better create smaller groups. This, is something where Rio says, oh, hey, we need a math tutoring community based on, we're seeing, a lot of the conversations are centered around math. Let's try to go ahead and move into the math, space. There's also data exports where you can get member activity, conversation activity, and resource activity. So again, when your customer success team meets with you weekly or however often, our goal is to just review those analytics with you and make sure, we're hitting all the points that are important to you. Oh, I think you muted, Danielle.
But I sounded great to myself. We have a couple more questions in the chat, but I wonder if they might be better to answer face-to-face in the InSpace community. So Jeannie, do we want to kind of wrap it up here and invite everyone into the InSpace community?
Absolutely. So let's see. Danielle, do you want to invite everyone to this and then we'll move over to InSpace?
Before we move on over it to InSpace, we would like all of you to we'd like to invite all of you to join us next week while we hear from leading experts in belonging and student success. So if you can join us for unpacking a sense of belonging when learning online, I'm going to drop that link in here if I can find it in our chat. Please register there. We'll also send it in the follow-up emails that come over the next couple of days. So next slide, please.
Okay.
So we now invite you. Oh, go ahead.
Well, one last thing, I am going to join you in the InSpace community. So I would encourage you to, join us, ask me questions, ask me my personal experience. I work with a lot of institutions and I would love to answer your questions. So thank you for hanging out with me today.
Perfect. Well,